Good afternoon, members, and good afternoon to everybody who's joined us here at our virtual meeting. Can before we start, can I ask everyone to have their mics muted? There's a bit of feedback. Members, you are all very welcome. Our October's planning committee meeting. Unfortunately, the restrictions that are in place in our council area means that it's we're required to have this meeting remotely. I'm going to hand over to Maura now to do a roll call. Maura, are you on the call?
Yes, Chair. Good afternoon, members. You're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Planning Committee held remotely on Wednesday, the 7th of October 2020. Councillor Jason Barr. He's on mute.
All right, here. Yep, here, Maura.
Thank you, Jason. Councillor John Boyle.
Yeah, I'm here, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Dobbins.
Yes, Maura, I'm here.
Councillor Paul Gallagher.
I'm Sean.
Councillor Sean Harkin. Councillor Sean Harkin. I'll just come back. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Sure.
Councillor Dan Kelly.
Sure.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Here.
Thank you.
Hello.
Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Here, Maura.
Thanks, Hilary. Councillor Kieran Maguire.
Sure, Maura.
Thank you, Kieran. Councillor Philip McKinney. I'll come back.
I have apologies from Councillor McKinney.
Apologies. Councillor Aileen Mellon.
And Sean Maura.
Thank you, Aileen. And Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here, Maura.
Thank you, Sean. I'm just call out again for Councillor Sean Harkin. I don't see, there's no apologies and I can't see him there, Chair. Hopefully he'll join us.
No problem. Thank you, Maura.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to move on to statement for remote meetings. I'd like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via Council's YouTube channel and will also be available for viewing by the public and the media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded they only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting, and to use the chat facility to highlight the request to speak. By participating in the meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use of the storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website. And I just see Councillor Harkin has attended, has come into the meeting, so can his attendance be recorded? Sure.
Thanks, Chris.
Again, just can we remind everybody just to keep their mics on mute, because there is there can be quite a lot of feedback. Can I ask members if there's any declarations of interest for any items on the business for today's meeting? No.
Chair. I have a declaration for that item mentioned in confidential. There's only one item in confidential, so I'm sure we'll be able to work that out. Which one?
Okay. Thank you, John. And just in relation to that, can you email one of the declarations of interest forms?
I certainly will. If somebody can send me a copy via email, I'll return it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, John. And if there's any other declarations that are interested arise during the meeting, can members just alert us to them as they arise? I'm going to move on now, and this is actually the first deputation that we've had as the planning committee, and it's coming on the back of there's been quite a lot of discussion at planning committee over recent months around the role of HED, and we all know within our council area there's a lot of listed buildings. There's a lot of buildings, historic fabric within particularly within our walled city, that we're immensely proud of. But I know because of the sheer amount of listed buildings and buildings of that nature within our district, that has led to delays in processing of planning applications, and I know that frustration has been aired at planning committee. So we have requested that HED attend the committee and present the committee and help give us an understanding of the role of HED and the role that they play in terms of protecting the historic fabric of our city and district. So it takes me great pleasure to invite Brian McKervey to address the committee. You're very welcome, Brian.
Thanks very much. I'm waiting for a PowerPoint. Well, maybe I'll share one myself, will I?
Yeah, have you provided?
Yeah, I have it. Sorry, I was waiting for it to be uploaded, but that's grand. I'll share it myself here.
Okay, thank you.
Well done.
Have you got the facility to
Yeah,
share?
I've got it here. So I'm just trying to get it. Can you see it there?
Yes, Brian, thank you.
That's okay. I'll just go back here. Well, I work in what's essentially called the development management and management and change branch in the Historic Environment Division. And we're a statutory consultee to all planning authorities, and that includes DFI. And that's really under the GDPO order, and it's for development proposals and the demolition in whole or part or the material alteration of a listed building, or where a development proposal is likely to affect the site or setting of any historic monument, and that's under the HMAO, Historic Monuments and Archaeological Objects Order. And then separately for listed building consent applications, and that relates to the special character of listed buildings and for environmental impact assessments. So overall, we have around nearly 9,000 listed buildings throughout Northern Ireland, over 16,000 recorded archaeological sites and monuments, 90 monuments in state care, including your own Derry Walls, which is the largest in Northern Ireland and the most complete on the island of Ireland. We have over 1,900 scheduled monuments, and then we've got historic parks, gardens and domains, industrial and maritime archaeology. So they're all considerations in the determination of planning processes. So we have a lot in. What we do is we use guidance and screening and triage and pre-application discussions to create efficiencies. And these are some of the recent publications we've issued, and that's for a really where they can get a more robust consultation through for our assessment, and that's about development and archaeology, and changes to listed buildings, and then really what's required to make a good robust application. So we seek to respond to a professional and timely manner. As a statutory consultee, the applications refer to us that are planning decisions that have positive or negative impacts on heritage. And we get around 4,500 consultations a year with 21 days, and we try to get or generally do 75, as close to 50% back on target. For the demolition and whole or part of a listed building or for material alterations, and as I said previously, affecting the setting of the listed building, and I'll talk more about that. We use sort of screening or zoning areas so that we're not consulted on everything. So it's applications within 200 meters of the boundary of a monument in state care, or 200 meters in the boundary of a scheduled historic monument or scheduled canal, or an area of archaeological interest or potential. And also for applications that affect historic parks contained in our Register of Historic Parks, Gardens and Domains. We're also consulted on non-statutory consultees, and that's appropriate that we should, that which may have heritage environments. So but we or alteration or demolition development proposals impacting on state care or scheduled monuments and application sites containing recorded archaeological remains. Statutories such as environmental impact assessments and for discharge of conditions, and that's where a planning permission we have conditions to mitigate also consulted on advertisement consults, not them all, but advertisements that are either fixed or within the currently listed building, and for large-scale advertisement proposals within 50 meters of the setting of a listed building. And in terms of listed buildings, apply to really any works that change the character of the listed building internally and externally. So it can even be things like railings, gates, garden walls, chimneys, roofs. Small outbuildings require listed building consent. Internally, if we're having alterations or adaptations inside, if there's any change to the features which may be of interest and add value to the listed building, we're consulted on those too. And this diagram, I think, really explains how far that consultation can go. So if you like, the main house there is the listed asset, but you will see there that even the rear and boundary walls are protected, and really any structure within the curtilage of the building which is affixed to the building or forms part of the land and has done so since before the 1st of October, that's considered as listed. So it's quite extensive, and I will talk more about the setting of historic assets in a few minutes. And as I said, this is our advice, and what we seek to do is to be as helpful as possible to councils and to be as efficient as possible. So we've produced these guidances, and that's how to make a robust consultation to councils, and it makes us more straightforward for us to assess. There are a number of cases where you get applications coming in, don't have all the required information, and it can cause delays. And what we do is really around British Standard 7913, which is about the Guide to the Conservation of Historic Buildings, and we consider the impact of the change. So really, it's minimum intervention. The minimum change that can be delivered, and then the maximum retention original fabric, the clarity, so that you can have a modern extension sitting alongside a listed asset, and it's very clear which is which. One is reversibility. So, for example, there is a church what has been turned into an office, but the interventions are reversible, and it can be disassembled and removed. The two images that you're looking at, there's an existing building and there's a smaller building to the rear. So the image on the bottom left shows a large two-story extension. So our position was something that would be that it's not subservient, there's fussy detail, and it's actually difficult to read the original building, listed building on its site. And then there's a change to the original entrance, really the junction between the extension and the existing roof. There's issues about how it can be overbearing on the listed building. So if you look at the image over here, then in the top right, the extension has been really added on, but it's a smaller building which is removed from the listed building. You can see the listed building more clearly, and the extension doesn't compromise the listed building setting. Then the fifth one, which is a principle, is sustainability, and that's really that supports a sustainable future for the building. So it's to ensure that we're sort of looking long term for these assets and their potential usages. For applicants to understand the special significance of the building and why it's listed and why it meets certain criteria to be placed onto the list. And then another issue that can sometimes cause confusion is about pink wash. And really, that's no statutory basis, but you will sometimes see this on maps. And it was simply an indication to planning officers in the past of what areas we would need to be consulted in. But our recent maps are much more extensive than that. So the pink watch doesn't indicate curtilage in its entirety. So again, even something as small as a shop front like that, if you're making change to it and that's a listed building, we would require listed building consent for that. And even small elements like these are part and parcel. They're interest. So it can really extend to tiles and logie holes and glazing. With regard to setting of listed buildings, it's not just the immediate surrounds of listed buildings, and this is another guidance that we've provided to explain all of that. A good example here is Belfast City Hall. So this is way down Royal Avenue, and building dominates the streetscape, and part of the setting is viewed way down, so it's not just the immediate grounds of Belfast City Hall. Very significant, which contributes to the significance and the distinctive character of the heritage asset and how it can be seen, experienced, understood, and enjoyed. The current examples, and this is the Bank of Ireland at the bottom of Royal Avenue in Belfast, and I've just used a few current examples, and sorry, I don't actually have any from DSCD, but these are the best examples that we currently have. So this is a listed asset, a tower. It's sometimes called the Little Empire Building. So we have had a number of proposals in for this over the years, the majority of which have had two-story extensions here, building right up to the tower, and we've advised that is inappropriate. It is very dominant and impacts the original detailing, the original massing of the listed building. solution we found where we have a proposals here and here either side of it, but here the new build doesn't come right up to the back of the clock tower, but that's retained, and it's critical views from the street that it doesn't impact on it. So you can see this in its round without being overshadowed by development immediately behind it. This is in Newry, and this is a listed cathedral, and it was a supposedly temporary large visual screen impacted significantly on the setting of the cathedral. So it wasn't for a significant adverse impact. And this is another very large current scheme. This is St. Anne's Cathedral, up in the top left of the upper image. And you can see that it has a significant setting, albeit that it has a cathedral, or it's a city cathedral. And it's like the cathedral in the city walls. You know, there isn't an awful lot of space around it, but the development here, which was proposed and actually has been approved, is for a very large 7-story building that will be in place here in front of the cathedral. So this is a good example, really, of where we have advised that it is inappropriate, and then the council has notified DFI. So this has got approval, but what we have within that, through really several years of not negotiations, but long going on discussions, we have secured a number of assets that will be retained and reused. And the front entrances to this is the North Street Arcade, which was very badly damaged in a fire a number of years ago. So that's been taken down. But in our role as statutory consultees, we advise that where some areas could be retained to keep the special character, and we accept fully that councils may decide to go against our advice and recommend and give approval for schemes, but that's rare. It's less than 1%. So I like to think we have generally a good rapport with councils and are supportive as possible. But we can have very detailed ongoing engagement for a number of years on a particular scheme. This is a bank buildings and the fire, the Primark building. This was 28th of August, 2018. And it was very extensive, but we worked very closely with the council and to deliver effectively a rescue package. And really, a lot of that building has to be really treated as a new build, but we're able to retain the front facade. And there's an awful lot of conditions on that so that the building wasn't allowed to fall down. But we worked very closely and very quickly. And for schemes like that, we acknowledge that there's a huge economic considerations, and the impact of that on the city in terms of road closures, etc., was very significant. So we worked with them, and this is a tower of shipping containers, and there's 20 tons of sand in each. So we got 170 of those around, and a lot of engagement with the councils, with engineers, to ensure that it could be temporarily propped. And all of the salvageable assets, they are kept in a warehouse outside of Belfast. And the position is that we really want to retain as much as possible and get it put back into place. And Primark were excellent. They're very supportive of where we are with all of this. And the last slide really highlights the extent you have to go to sometimes to a cable listed building. This is the ground floor, and the Farset River runs underneath the building. So the river had to be directed in the basement of the Primark building. and a completely new sprinkler system. A water tank had to be installed in the basement as well. That's it. I'm not going to go on. You've probably heard enough there, but I'm very happy to take questions or discuss issues.
Thank you, Brian. And can I ask anybody who has who wishes to indicate to speak, could you indicate through the chat box? But at the minute there is nobody. I see Councillor Boyle. Just before I bring Councillor Boyle in, I just want to make a few general points in relation to the role of HED, and I don't think there's anybody in this committee that doesn't value the role of HED, and if in any instances where we go against the advice of HED, I want to reassure yourselves that it's not a decision that we take lightly. But in saying that, the criticism of HED and your presentation doesn't nearly address or doesn't address those concerns, and because some of the criticisms that we're hearing is that HED can be Belfast centric, and unfortunately the presentation that we received today nearly reaffirms that. Now we do have a significant historic fabric within our city and district. We've buildings of special character, but we've also had buildings which are at risk as well. And there's times where we see or HED is viewed as an obstacle to having those buildings restored, and that's something that can be really deeply frustrating. I can understand from your presentation that HED look right into the finer details, right up under the tiles that are installed in the building, and that sometimes whenever people are looking and seeing that there's real potential for a building to be brought back into use, and if there's small minute details that are holding that application back, that can be seen as petty, and that's sometimes where HED comes under a lot of criticism, particularly within our council area, and what we're hearing is that the HED aren't forthcoming with solutions, and that's something that we would like to see. I'm hoping that coming out of this, that the message is heard from our council area is that we want to work with yourselves, but we want to see historic buildings brought back into use and modernised. And we've seen a few examples like in Edmonton and nearby in the Waterside Railway Station, where we've seen historic buildings brought back into use, modernised, which respects the historic fabric of that building, and that's something that we see there's an enormous potential there, and again, it not only does it add it adds as an overall planning gain. They are our city and district. It also helps sustain those buildings, because all our ways, and I know I referred to the Waterside Railway, that building was in very poor condition, but now it's restored, and it's we can see it back to its former glory. But I know there's no questions within that, and I'm going to bring Councillor Boyle in before I let you back in, Brian. Thank you, Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. Again, and also thank you, Brian, for the presentation. I have no great degree of concern in that the presentation was Belfast centric, but I do concur with one element of what the Chair says in that release, and that does relate to the fact that sometimes we in this part of the world do feel that the decisions that impact here are perhaps applied by HED officers who see things through that particular prism, as things might impact on buildings in Belfast. These are two totally different types of places. You'll know that, and I'm very appreciative of all the work that the HED do and all of the oversight that you have. And clearly, you know, the historic fabric of our city. Our city's older than Belfast, we all know that. and there's a very significant historic fabric here. You've already obviously mentioned the city walls, but we have very many protected listed areas within the city, the Clarendon Street area and around there too. But the chair's kind of said an awful lot of what I wanted to say, Brian, actually, and it's really about the frustration around some of the minutiae that is applied when developers are trying to bring particularly listed buildings, and it's about listed building consents. It was myself actually suggested bringing you in here to give us a run over, give an overall view of what it is that you do. But my focus and my concern and the reason for doing it was about listed building consents, and the fact that some of it perhaps to the layman doesn't always make an awful lot of sense. And it's primarily because those who want to bring listed buildings back into use, and I'm actually gonna reference two applications which are coming back before this committee this afternoon, and it's kind of what provoked us to bring you in, because we as a committee were presented with a listed building which to all intents and purposes, certainly in my view, and I think everybody else shared the view, the applicant had gone to an awful lot of expense and trouble to bring back into use and to make it look as close to the original as they possibly could. But one of the difficulties here is sometimes the prohibitive expense of reintroducing particular elements of an original building. And I understand we don't always want to see plastic downpipes, but in my view, there may well, for example, be something other than what the original would have been made of that would be as aesthetically pleasing perhaps to the eye. And sometimes that's where the frustration comes in. I've also heard stories of, someone wants to develop a listed building and they're encouraged, and I don't disagree with this, they're encouraged to replace wooden sash windows like for like. But then when they say they want to install double glazed wooden sash windows, they're actually informed, actually no, double glazing doesn't fit. Now, for me, that doesn't make any sense. We live in a different era from when some of these buildings were built, and traffic noise of 1847 or 1868 is very different to the traffic noise of 2020. Also, heating is a very different setup. So there's different demands, if you can see where I'm at. So what actually happens, Brian, is ultimately what potentially does happen is that a developer, for want of a better way of putting it, or somebody who wants to restore a building just through the love of it, actually doesn't, because they find the cost prohibitive. And the reason they find the cost prohibitive is because of the various elements that HED and the various, if you don't mind me saying, the various hoops that they're expected to jump through. We also have, and I can't discuss it here and now, but there's another example of that coming up in confidential business later on, which I think might have come down more to HED than the council's desire to prevent the development. And so, what we're running the risk of here is we're going to see a situation where buildings will be allowed to lie derelict. And there actually are examples of buildings in this city which have lain derelict for some considerable years. And I'm not saying the entire blame for that lies at the door of HED and officers from HED, but I do think that a little bit more of a pragmatic approach when looking at how it is we bring buildings back into use, as opposed to rigidly sticking to the rules, and making sure that every piece of red tape has to be adhered to, because my fear is that if we completely stick rigidly to these rules, then we will actually reach a situation where more buildings will fall in, and that's where HED need to be thinking. And in actual fact, I know that members of our planning committee we're always reluctant to overturn officer recommendation. And certainly when it comes to historic buildings, we would pay particular attention to that. But at the same time, sometimes circumstance dictates otherwise to us. And sometimes I think officer recommendation comes to us because of the strictures that are placed on their recommendation by a consultee such as HED. So that's where the frustrations are.
Okay.
You know, I appreciate trying to maintain physical fabric is very, very important. I congratulate HED actually on their insistence that the bank building and buildings like it are retained in their entirety. We hadn't always obviously had that opportunity, particularly during the era of the Troubles, where perhaps we didn't have that luxury. So just to say, Chair, I will wind it up. I know it's a difficult balancing act, but my concern is it's how prohibitive in terms of expense that bringing buildings back into use can be when we insist through HED in particular that that particular drain pipe has to be made of this particular substance, and that window cannot have double glazing. You get my point. Some of that stuff actually to the ordinary man, woman, child in the street would never be seen. And it, you know, if it's aesthetically as pleasing with a double glazing and it has without it, then why not have the double glazing? That's the kind of stuff I'm looking at.
Thank you, Councillor.
That's the kind of stuff, Chair, just to let me finish. That's the kind of stuff that ends up holding up people from moving on. You know, like the one we're talking about there. This was
Councillor Boyd.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's me. I'm done. I could talk forever about this, Chair, but I don't intend to. It's just to share the frustrations. You did actually say most of what I wanted to say, Chair, so it's just as well you did.
That's what I was hoping. Councillor Boyle, there's a lot covered. And before we bring Brian back in, is there any other members wish to make a comment or ask a question? Because I'm conscious we do have quite a lot of business to get through today.
No, I think John covered that, Chris. Thank you.
And it looks as if I've got technical difficulties.
But you're frozen on the screen, Chair.
Brian, do you want to come back on there?
I do. Well, the first thing is, Councillor, I totally get it. I can totally see how there can be frustration, but there's a few things I just want to raise about what you raised. One is that I deliberately didn't bring specific schemes for Derry because I didn't want to distract from an overall picture. And sometimes when you get schemes, I was thinking about bringing Irvington 30, Irvington 40, to it, even the Customs House, you know, the awnings, and I thought I'll be a distraction here. The Belfast centric, yes, the presentation was that, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant not to be focused on any particular application, recent one in Derry. I actually think that I was an architect over the Fileside shop, the Debenham store in the Naughties, and I know Derry very well, and I think, you know, the assets you have are absolutely fantastic, and what you've done with them, it's just great. I'm in Derry very frequently, and I think that the way all the heritage and the setting has been retained, especially after the City of Culture, is fantastic. In terms of a few issues that you raised, the double glazing, we have moved on very significantly, and now if you've got large windows, we'll allow slim light double glazing. And that's a step change from years and years ago. But what we try to do is, and I think this is a change from years ago, we would have said, no, this doesn't comply. But we're architects and archaeologists. So what we try to do pretty much as far as possible is say, right, we have to advise the council that that does not meet with policy. But we will try to come up with other solutions. And that is what we've done for Irvington. I've been involved closely with the hotel scheme up in the Irvington site, and we worked backwards and to get a building that would deliver for the developer, but which respected the setting of the whole Irvington site. So that's part and parcel. That is really part of our daily work. You know, with regard to the awning to the Customs House, yes, an awning would be appropriate, but not something that actually damaged the stonework to the front of the building and would have been extended so far out that it would have blocked the view of the building. So yes, maybe we are splitting hairs, but what we try to do is think long term and manage change so that the assets will retain all of their special architectural features. Even though, you know, awnings come and go, you know, awning might be there for 10 or 20 years, but it's to make sure they're not damaged. So that's an example there. We work very closely with the Abercorn. What was the building? It was proposed for offices, and then was just parked. And now it's all happened. But we work very closely there. Yeah, but we work very closely. So what we try to do is really engage with applicants alongside our professional colleagues, the planners and district councils, to get the best solution that's compliant with policy. Now, there are some things that we can't consider, which would be maybe bigger economic considerations that the councils have to consider and councillors. Our remit is narrow, and I fully get that. What we try to do is not be as flexible as possible, but be as workable as possible within policy to deliver for the greater good. And that's the direction I have tried to lead the branch, to be as available, reachable, and to work closely with the councils and with applicants. You know, the pre-application discussions, we would never have had those in the past, but since 2015, we do hundreds of those a year. And what we do get is an awful lot of back and forth, not negotiation, but about proposals and then a developer coming back. And I appreciate that might cost a developer in terms of paying his design team. But our position is, let's work, put things on the table to see if alternatives might make policy, as opposed to just saying no. And for example, some of the development up in Irvington, that's a really good example of that. We invested an awful lot of time for the hotel up there, and it was worth it. It was significantly changed to something that was appropriate for the setting. But I think that's a good example, and one that I know because I was involved with it directly myself. I went up to site twice, meet the developers and the architects twice, and also met with your planners. You know, I've travelled, I'm from Annaman, but I live in Belfast, but I've travelled up there. So on a personal level, I think the heritage in Derry is fantastic, and it's celebrated so cleverly and so openly. And it is probably the biggest draw you have from tourists. But that's all I'm going to say. I hope I've answered some of your questions there, but and right, okay.
Thank you. There's quite a lot that's been said, and I want to move this meeting on because there's quite a lot of business to get through. But I just want to thank Brian for his comments and for taking the opportunity or taking the time to come and address the committee and help give the committee a better understanding. Because certainly that's what we wish as a committee, is that HED work with everyone and try and find solutions, because for all too often we get the message that that this can't be done because of a requirement of HED. And what we're very much asking as a committee is that HED work with applicants for solutions. And I know you referenced the hotel in Edmonton. I know the hotel in Edmonton was endorsed and unanimously by this committee, and we very much look forward to that the construction beginning on that. But I don't want to delay the meeting any further.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for your attendance. We really do appreciate it. And,
well, thanks a million. And I'm sorry that We used to have loads of funding, and I'm very sorry the times that we live in we don't. But we'll get there again sometime. But thanks, and I really took on board your comments, Councillor Boyle. Thank you.
Members, I'm going to move on now to chairperson's business. There's a few items that I wish to bring up. First of all, members, I just want to refer to a briefing that members of the Planning Committee had only a few weeks ago, where there was a clear direction from the Planning Committee that we would continue to have meetings held in physically or socially distanced meetings, and we would look to have site visits if at all possible. Members, as everybody's aware, all too aware, that that the rate of COVID has increased, unfortunately increased in our city and district, and as a result, the regulations have been put in place, which would make it, I suppose, we would make it that it would be extremely difficult for us to have a physically distanced meeting in the current in the current conditions, and it makes it even more difficult to have a site visit for a number of outstanding applications. So we just want to hear members' views in relation to site visits until the restrictions change, the guidelines change. It's unlikely that we will have site visits. I've spoke to officers and I've been reassured that as soon as it's safe to do so, that the outstanding site visits will be requested. But inevitably, it is going to result in delays in those applications. And I just wanted to, as members satisfied with that, I just noted Councillor Boyle had indicated that he is happy with for us to wait until it's safe to have the site visits. Is there any other views on that? No, I'm just going to take it everybody's content. Yeah.
Chair, just come in, sorry.
Councillor Mellon, go ahead.
Thank you. It was just, I fully agree as well. We can't put anybody at any additional risk. And I'm sure everybody's on the same mind frame. It was just that those people who are waiting for site visits or who have the notion that there will be one in the next few weeks, if they can be contacted or communicated with us, that's that.
Yeah. So, Mark, can we ask that correspondence is sent to those applications that are being delayed due to our inability to hold a site visit? Can that be communicated with those applicants?
Yes, no problem, Chair. I'll get that organised so that they understand and are updated on the position, and let them know that we'll be in touch as soon as we're in a position to take the site visits again. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Maura, our members, just in another item that in terms of chairperson's business is in relation to the running order. We have got into the practice now to rearrange the running order for applications to help accommodate those who have requested speaking rights. So the running order for today's meeting is the first application is item number 2. The second is 3 and 4 will be presented together, and then appendix 5, then 1, and then it's 6 and 7, and finally appendix 8. So that'll be the running order for today's applications. And I know, members, that we have received correspondence this morning in relation to an application on the Ballygunn Road. I just want to hand over to Maura, and Maura can give us a bit of a background in relation to that correspondence. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you'll receive a notification we got in the 25th of September, and it's from the Planning and Appeals Commission. Basically, the applicants from the proposal we have from JP McGuinness, and that's in the Ballygodden Road, which members will be fully aware of, as it was in front of the committee and twice beforehand. Basically, the applicant has exercised their right to take a non-determination appeal. This is a situation where applicants can, if they wish, appeal to the PAC within 8 weeks of the application being submitted. So that's within 2 months. And rather than the committee having a decision-making role on this application, the jurisdiction for this application passes over to the PAC. So at this point, the PAC now have control over that decision making. So it's just, I wanted to obviously update members that has been a change in circumstances, and that I wanted you to be aware of that. So can take any questions, Chair, if you wish.
Thanks, Maura. Any questions, members? No. And I just know, for one, I'm disappointed that as a committee, it is unlikely that we are getting the opportunity to take the decision on that application. There's Councillor Dobbins.
Thanks very much, Chair. Sorry, I'm having sort of in and out of this. I don't know why, or if it's the internet here, but it seems to be going in and out a lot. But Maura, can I just ask with regard to that? So if anybody doesn't like how, you can sort of sense a feeling about how a application is going to go. So if anybody doesn't like what we're going to be saying, the easy way out is go to the PAC and hope that they'll be in favour. That's just a question.
Councillor Dobbins, just to sort of clarify, all committee and delegated applications are all subject to this. So a minor application, intermediate, any type of application, after 8 weeks, even if there is no recommendation, the right of appeal exists for all applicants. So it's not particularly anything, of one type or another, or what stage it's at. It's any stage after 2 months that they can use and exercise that right of appeal.
I just noted that Councillor Dobbins has indicated she's satisfied with the response from the head of planning. Any further comments, members?
Chair, do you mind if I come on?
Go on ahead, John.
Right, sorry, I was getting a wee bit of an internet interference there as well, Chair. So I just want to be clear about this. What are they appealing? We didn't make a decision.
Exactly what they're appealing. They're appealing the non-determination. That they believe that they feel that council
Our fair.
haven't taken the decision, and they wish, which is their right to do so, for planning appeals to consider the application.
So to be clear, Chair, what happened here is, because we deferred making a decision, they now can take that decision out of our hands and go straight to the PAC. Is that what we're being told? Yeah.
That's my understanding. Maura, do you want to confirm?
Yeah, it's not that because you deferred it, it's simply because they have the rights. After 2 months, this application's with us over 2 years. So at any point after 2 months, any applicant, including this applicant, has the right to exercise the opportunity to move the decision-making process to the PAC. So,
All right, fair enough.
Chair, can I come in just to ask one follow-up?
Councillor Money, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, through the chair, obviously, is there any sort of mechanism through that appeal that the PAC might refer it back to us again, saying that a decision wasn't taken? Or do they have that right based on that appeal mechanism?
what happens, Councillor Mooney, is they ask for a position or an opinion on the application.
Right.
And what we have done is pass them the report or the recommendation that was submitted into committee and all the information that has happened since then, whether it's been objections or any engagement with consultees. So essentially the file and the jurisdiction of the file passed over to them. But there is an opportunity, obviously, we discussed this earlier, if members wished to make submissions to the PAC, that we would pass them to the PAC as well. But it won't be a decision of the committee, but it may be commentary that members may wish to make. Suppose maybe Philip might want to come in and clarify if I haven't been clear enough there, Philip.
So essentially, PAC will be the first decision maker, not us. That's essentially the way it's going.
Yes, that's correct. They will make the decision. They are the decision-making body now.
That's great. Thank you, Maura. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Just on that point, Maura, can we clarify the mechanism for providing that feedback from members of the committee? So members of the committee can express an opinion, or if either in support of the recommendation or against it, but or support of the application or against it. Can we just have a bit of clarity on the mechanism? Is that report, is that information sent to yourself?
Yeah, Chair, if I'll come in on that if you want. Chair, effectively now the position is that the committee members are, in the same position as any other elected member now in relation to this matter. They're quite free to express their own independent view in respect of the application and to lobby in respect of it one way or other in respect of the PAC. When any other member of the public submits, it tends to be objections in these circumstances, but it could equally be letters of support, submits them to the council, then the council forwards them on to the PAC. So we would just do that for any other elected member as well.
Note that Councillor Maguire asked a specific question, and I know Councillor Mooney had referred to it as well. Is there any possibility of this being deferred back to this committee?
No, Chair, that won't happen. No, the PAC will make the determination in relation to it.
No, thank you. Any further comments or questions, members?
Just come in on one follow-up there.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
It's probably the fallout now. I mean, I don't know if Maura would agree, but obviously, if this is going to be seen as a sort of mechanism that if we don't get an application on time in 2 months, then people may just say, "Well, we're going to the PAC," and would that be another view on that, Maura? Is that?
Chair, if I can, sorry.
Just come on first, and then maybe Philip can come on. It's just to let everyone know this is the first time this has happened in the whole 5 years since we transferred the function into council. So this is the very first time a non-determination appeal has happened. So it's not normal and usual. And in my view, it is time consuming to go through a planning appeal as well. So I don't think that it's literally, a decision that many applicants would take lightly. So, that would be my view on it, and maybe let Philip come in there.
No, Chair, that was almost exactly the point that I was going to make. This is obviously 2011 legislation, and I think the same similar provision existed in the previous Planning Act as well. But in terms of the council, this is the first time that we've had this. It's extremely rare across all of the councils that applications would be called in on a non-determination basis. It's obviously a fairly high-risk strategy for an applicant in particular to issue a non-determination appeal, because it means they only get one bite at the cherry. If the application is determined by the council, well, the applicant can still appeal to the PAC if they don't like the outcome. So it is extremely rare that this is used.
And I suppose it goes without saying that it's in the interest of this committee for us to process the applications as quick as possible and come to a determination on each of the applications as soon as possible. And I believe we do so. so there's no undue delay in relation to processing of applications. And so with that in mind, I suppose the PAC route is a delay. But again, it's an option that's open to everyone, and it's out of our hands. I suppose we can get on with our business in determining the applications as quickly as possible and going through the business. So with that in mind, I'm planning to move on.
Chair?
Okay, who's it, Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm not clear, is there a corporate position going forward to the PAC, or is it simply go forward as a recommendation from the officers would come to the planning committee? Just on that. So, and is it going, if anybody has an opinion on it, does it go forward just as an individual councillor opinion rather than a corporate position?
Sorry, through you, Chair, just as an individual councillor opinion rather than a corporate position, the matter's been taken out of the hands of the planning committee now, so we no longer have a determining role as a planning committee in relation to the matter, so it's not a corporate position that's put forward. In that respect, it can be from any individual members, so feel free to disagree with each other in relation to this and put forward different opinions if you wish.
Okay. I'm going to move on. Maura just wants to make members aware of an ALGA webinar session that's coming up that will be maybe useful to members of the planning committee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members, just want to alert you to a webinar which is free, which NILGA has organised, which is specifically in and around planning and placemaking. And those 4 webinars, you will have notification of it, commencing the 21st of October, and they run until the 25th of November. And there's 4 different webinars. One was in designing quality places, heritage-led regeneration, long-term impact of planning decisions, and the new normal in and around infrastructure and improvements as a result of the COVID and the pandemic. So we just wanted to let you know it came to our attention, and we just wanted to pass it on to everyone that they could possibly link into that at some point. But all the details and the times are all in the email that Annette sent around there today. But if anyone has any queries, come back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. And finally, members, I've just want to get a bit of a steer from members in relation to the scheme of delegation. The head of planning and the officer team have brought to my attention that there is quite a number of applications in the pipeline in relation to HMOs. A lot of them are in relation to licensing of HMOs, which would fall under the scheme of delegation. There's also applications that are in the system in relation to ammonia, which would have ammonia emissions, which would be a consideration. They would fall within the scheme of delegation. I want to get a steer from members. Are members content that those applications would remain delegated unless called on by a member of the committee? And I'm conscious that that we may be doing these meetings remotely for the foreseeable. So I just want a wee bit of direction from members. Are we content with the scheme of delegation, or do you want to add anything to that, Maura?
Sorry, yes, Chair. I just wanted to come in. We were going to suggest that maybe we'd have some sort of informal discussion, so I could then maybe lay that out with members maybe in a week or two, just in terms of the numbers and the extent, so that they could then consider that and give feedback to us then. It's probably quite detailed subject matters and might be hard to cover all that today, but we would be more than happy to do that like we did before in an informal discussion. And that might be helpful if members were agreeable. Thanks,
That's
Chair.
a good suggestion. We're going to bring in Councillor McGuire.
Chair, there has been some new regulations on ammonia or something. Could we have a copy of that sent to us before we actually make the decision? Some announcement on it. Sorry.
Yeah. Councillor Maguire, we have something on the agenda today in terms of a paper, so that covers the subject as a position as now. But we may have more information in a few weeks' time when there is actually there is an announcement, but we haven't actually seen the consultation yet. So we will be dealing with that in the paper later in the agenda. But if we have anything, we'll give it in advance of any discussion, no problem. Sorry, you're mute, Chair.
Unmute there.
I cut out there, so I missed a lot of what was said. But if the gist of it is that we're going to come back and have a further discussion on it, and we'll be supplied with information prior to the discussion, then we can tend to move on. Yeah. Eileen, apologies, I must have you indicated. Do you wish to come on this?
No, I'm content to have that further discussion, Chair, particularly regarding the HMOs and the scheme of delegation around it.
Okay. Going to move on, members. Going to move on to matters arising of the open minutes to the special.
Chair.
Sorry, apologies, members. No, I'm not going ahead, Maura.
Sorry, Chair, I can't nudge you anymore quietly. Just one more thing. We just wanted to cover the late item. Is that okay, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Just members, just to the start of the meeting, as always, we would always get good practice to advise you. We have in this meeting only received one late item and emails from Mr. Jim Robb, and it relates to item number 2. You will have had that email in advance of the meeting. Also, there was 10 photographs submitted with the email, and again, I know there was difficulties initially and seeing those in a Dropbox, but I think we've resent those. But to reassure you, they will also be part of Suzanne's presentation, and members will get a good opportunity to consider those and discuss them, as well as the applicant. So I just want to make sure we highlighted that at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura, and apologies for that oversight. Now, I'm going to move on now. The matters arising of the open minutes of the special planning committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 29th of July, pages 1 to 8. Any matters arising, members? No. Matters arising of the open minutes of the planning committee held Wednesday, the 2nd of September. The matters arising for the reconvened meeting of it was held remotely on Thursday the 3rd of September, pages 23 to 26. Any matters arising? No. Thank you. I'm going to move on now to the planning application list, and our first application is item number 2, is which is LA 11 2016 0436/F. It's the retention of a diagnostic and automotive electrical repair workshop with new access at Cara Darshan's Road in Castledearg. As Maura has outlined under Chairperson's business, there had been late information that was supplied to all members last night. Members, can I ask, we take a minute to familiarise yourself with that late information, and then we'll hand over to Suzanne to take us through the application. So let members let delay a minute just to familiarise with yourselves with the email from Mr. Robb. We can tend to proceed. Yeah. Go on ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Can everybody see this okay there? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, members, this item number 2 is application number LA11 2016-0436, and it is intention of diagnostic and automotive electrical repair workshop with new access to Carrickdartons Road, Castlederg, and the site location is 12 Sproul Road, Castlederg, with the additional access coming on to Carrickdartons Road. Members, this is just a site layout submitted with the application. This is Carrickdartons Road, just where I'm showing you there with the arrow, Sproul Road, and this is the site. And this is just a satellite site overview for you. This is the existing dwelling, and the building and the use in question is here to the rear, and this is the existing neighbouring dwelling here as well. So in terms of the proposal, this is the retention of the use of the and you will be aware from reading the report that the shed itself is immune from enforcement, and that has been determined through a previous appeal through a certificate of lawful development for the existing use. At that time, though, the use of the shed wasn't proven as immune, so the use remains the subject of this application. So the site is comprised of a detached dwelling and detached shed to the rear with a hard standing, and at present it's been used as a diagnostic and automotive electrical repair workshop. Just scroll on here. So these photos are older, really just to give you an idea of the scale of the shed to the rear here. This is the start of the access, and here we have the shed up the back behind the house, the existing house, and then the third party property over here. So I'm just going to show you another slide of the plans, retention, the shed, scale of it, and then this is the site layout here, so you can see the existing access runs down here, and then there's a proposed new access coming down onto Carrickdartons Road. So in terms of the planned application, the policy framework there is set out in front of you. We did consult number of consultees, which are listed in your reports pack. The DFI Roads had no objection. Environmental Health did advise that because of the electrical and diagnostic element of the repair workshop, that it would be likely to have less of a noise impact than if it was a general workshop as such. Locks Agency, no objections, NIA and Rivers Agency provided standard advice in relation to drainage within the site. There were a number of objections submitted from one property, and those are summarised in section 6 of your report, and those relate to just in terms of number of vehicles coming into the site, noise pollution, road safety, light pollution, hedges being cut down, which is really a third party issue, a civil matter, and fumes being generated from the workshop. So we would have consulted Environmental Health and Roads on those as well. So just really in terms of the looking at the plan and policy issue here, we are aware clearly the shed is lawful, and I have met with Mr. Robin as planning agent some time ago last year at the issues surrounding this, because it is quite complex. Because clearly this use is a B3 use in the use classes order. It's classified as general industrial. These uses are therefore considered under PPS 4, which basically says that PED 6 relates to small rural projects, and it says that basically they should be located in or near settlement limits, and are not located in the open countryside. And the other issue there's PED 9, which is considered in your reports as well, which is the general criteria for all industrial development, which this would fall into. And we have considered that, you know, there's three of those criteria that the application would not meet in relation to I think it's A, B, and M, which are to do with, it's not compatible because it is an industrial, a general industrial use. It should be located in an appropriate location within a settlement. And B, harming the amenity of nearby residents. Clearly, you know, environmental health have said that the noise issue is less of an issue because of the electrical diagnostic. But I mean, there is an issue here in terms of, I suppose, general disturbance in relation to this B3 use being located in the countryside. And we have received those third-party representations, and we have to consider those seriously. They are material considerations. So just because there's no noise, it doesn't mean there'll be no disturbance. And that is also protected within the SPPS, whereby, you know, we seek to protect the residential amenity, whereby there's a public interest in that. In terms of PED9, then we just go on. We've also looked at, does fall within PPS 21, and really the issue here, the building is immune. We can't, clearly it's not, the issue of integration in the building is not really pertinent today. But looking at the site and I suppose the potential for open storage of vehicles, and also the creation of quite a large access, sweeping access there as well, we feel that, you know, it does further erode the rural character of the area. So on balance, I mean, it was very, I suppose, finely balanced in terms of our assessment, and Mr. Robb and submit further information to me at the end of last year, because in the planning appeal decision that stipulated that the use was not immune, the commissioner felt that, you know, the evidence was not significant enough or consistent enough to show, and I have addressed that in the report. So Mr. Robb did kindly submit further information to me, which I looked at again, but that information alone doesn't demonstrate to me that there was a B3 use at this location. So on balance, we've discussed it with the senior team as well, and we feel that, you know, we feel it is contrary to CTY 1 and then the PPS 4 policies, and in terms of integration, rural character of the access and the scale of the development. And we have proposed those 4 reasons for refusal, which are concluded in your packs. Just in terms of, Mr. Robb has submitted an email from a person who has advised that there are no units available in, I think it's Castledarg. You know, so there's no appropriate units that this could relocate to. So that has come in as late information, members, just yesterday. And I'm just going to, if you want to go down these photos that Mr. Robb has put in, and so clearly that's demonstrating the electrical diagnostics in the car, and here we have in terms of the office and all the elements in there, and we have then a car again. Sorry, my system's just not bringing up. With the diagnostic kits, and then Mr. Robb has put in some more up-to-date photos from outside. So this is clearly looking up the Carrick-a-Dartons Road, and this is the existing dwelling, and this is the third-party dwelling here. This is the access, so you can't actually see the shed there. And then this is from further Carrick-a-Dartons Road, where you can see the shed, the access. So the new access will be coming out part of this here. Further distant photos. So all those photos give a good context of the surrounding, you know, rural character there of the site. That's the existing access, which is unauthorized, and this is the area where the cars were previously stored in terms of the other photo, the start of the report. So members, happy to take any questions after these speakers. Thank you.
Suzanne, just before I invite Mr. Robb to address the committee, I just want to ask members, is there anything that you want Suzanne to repeat? Because I'm conscious that I was able, my internet's been coming in and out throughout today's meeting, but I've managed to catch everything that Suzanne had said. I just want to ensure that everybody else is in the same boat. So there's nothing we need to run over again. No. Mr. Rob?
Chair?
Sorry, Councillor Kelly?
Chair, the shared screen's coming up very small. I wonder, is it possible to remedy that? You know, so the pictures and the text it's very, very small. I don't know why this time.
Okay, bear with me here. I'm trying to
Suzanne, if you actually switch into slideshow mode on your own screen, that might hopefully bring.
Yeah, but in relation to that, no, because a lot of the information that was displayed on the screen we have in our packs anyway. So, but hopefully it's for the next application. I'm not suggesting that we ask for this application to be presented again.
Is that better?
Yeah,
no, I don't want to go through the presentation.
Yeah,
again.
that's much better. So for the next application, we'll ensure that we're in the slideshow mode. But everybody caught everything that Suzanne had said. Yep. Mr. Rob, you're very welcome to address the planning committee. You've 5 minutes to make your comments. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, councillors and Suzanne, thank you very much indeed for your presentation and indeed giving me a chance to obviously represent from my own words. I was going to say, first of all, I'm just going to start off briefly what I've actually said on my letter, that indeed, again, as there's hedging and fencing has been put up. The site has been obviously improved. I mean, again, say from whenever we moved there existingly. Garage was originally here, was in continual use. I mean, again, say for since the year 2000 until I'd actually purchased the property in 2014, there was doors. The latter part of it was spray doors, internal doors were being sprayed here, and I purchased it and obviously changed it. I mean, again, say made an entrance out onto the road. I do, I don't know if you've probably seen it or not, I actually do repairs on ECUs and diagnostic electrical work in cars. So just to describe that to you, it means that if your light has come on in your car and again, you don't know what it is, I mean, what happens is that the car actually, you either A, bring the car yourself, or B, it gets dropped off. I plug into it, I repair the fault, the electrical fault, and then, I mean, again, to say whenever I repair the fault, then customer comes, collects it, and it's away again. I do, at the minute, a lot of nurses and a lot of frontline staff, so the likes of vehicles that are being used quite often at the minute. You'll tend to find as well at the minute that there's very, very few main dealers. Main dealers being like Audi, who are Belfast. So again, as I say, if somebody owns a van, Mercedes, they have to go to Portadown. These people, I mean, again, to say, go to their local mechanics who actually screwed off wheels and gearboxes and the like. I'm actually going to say, first of all, I'm not a mechanic. I don't do any mechanicing at all. The only stuff that you'll actually find in my garage is 2 lifts for obviously putting the cars up to work on. And you'll also find as well, I mean, the majority of my work, I mean, again, to say, is very quiet. There's no compressors, there's no drills, there's no kangos, there's no grinders, there's no hammers. I don't have a hammer. All this stuff that I have, I mean, again, to say, is primarily for diagnostic work. So again, most of it as well is listening, and also as well, as you can probably see, as you were having your meeting earlier there, I was actually repairing an ECU in my office upstairs. That's where I actually work from. Majority of the time, I can do remote diagnosis as well from here. So if your car has a problem, it comes here and it's an intermittent problem. I plug something into your car and you go about your business and drive wherever. And then whenever that light comes on, that alerts me. I can plug in from here and check your car and make sure that your car is obviously okay, or if it needs to come in to get something else done. I set up 20 years ago. I've always loved electrics. I mean, I approached the Enterprise Centre several times prior to purchasing such property. They've told me that it's always fully booked to capacity. Again, as I say, the property doesn't. There's no other. I mean, we have tried everywhere. And there's absolutely nowhere else at all in Castlederg, or I mean, again, say in the locality, so the likes of Kiln or Clear. But again, essentially, I'm called Castlederg Auto Electrics, and again, as I say, for me to be in Castlederg is obviously paramount to my business. I have also as well was going to add to you that although I didn't put it in because I had actually an application for a farm, which I also part manage as well. I have the little paddock which you've seen with the brown posts. There's actually a hawthorn hedge to be planted there. That hedging was put in on, we actually had that site levelled and reseeded back in the springtime. Obviously, again, as well as permitting, and at that stage the fencing was put up. Now there will be hedging, we dry rooted hawthorn hedging and lovely original trees. There'll also as well be an orchard as well. That's actually I've actually just got the email this morning here, but again, say it's there. It's on the Department of Agriculture's grant thing for farming in the community. So again, to say whenever that's up, there'll be a hawthorn hedge around it, and the hawthorn hedge will probably go to in a region of about, well, whatever it is, 4 to 6 feet, and obviously sitting, I mean, again, say a metre back from the edge of the road as well. So, you know, it will be even less closed off. I was going to say about the sweeping entrance and the entrance. I mean, again, as I say, I actually left the entrance at that width because, again, as I say, I've actually wanted to see. I mean, again, as I say, where best or how easily it is for vehicles to access the site. A lot of people do use that because it is a very narrow, very seldom used road. But sometimes you would find that, as I say, 2 vehicles would have met there, and one of them would have had to reverse back to the end of the road. So again, as I say, I leave that open to yourselves on that. Usually my work's between 9 and 6, but sometimes, I mean, again, we had an instance last night where there was a guy, engine management light on his van, the DPD van, and he rung me yesterday evening. He just says he wants to know what it is. He drives to Dungannon at 6 o'clock in the morning. So he came round here and I told him it was the heater plug. So he says, that's okay, no need to worry. So again, as I say, otherwise, I mean, what I do is specialised. He would have had to go to possibly Ballygolly to get it checked. And again, they don't open to 9 in the morning, 5 in the evening. That's a Mercedes dealership, or Portadown, or Mollusk. So again, as I say, that was that. I try and...
Sorry, Mr. Robb, your 5 minutes are up.
You're okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Mr. Robb, and I just know that there may be questions from members. Alderman Kerrigan wished to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. I was just going to ask Mr. Robb there was a few points, but he one point there he has raised there as in relation to an orchard, and I see he's mentioned it there in his comments. Plus, he has also mentioned it in his email. He does have documentation in relation to that. Just looking to clarify that he has documentation in relation to. I'm assuming there's an application to do that with the Department of Agriculture in relation to a scheme, made a countryside management scheme. So that would support his claim. It's not just a comment that it's passed that he'll plant an orchard. He has. I'm just confirming that he does have documentation to back that up, that is part of his scheme that he's looking to go on to do. And that's going to be in the little garden there beside the dwelling house coming towards the crossroads. Isn't that correct? And
yeah, just once.
That's okay. Go ahead.
From your first photograph there, I mean, again, you see the big stone stand at the end of the road there. That paddock, the 3 sides of it will be fenced around with hawthorns, and then in the centre, it's a traditional Irish. Well, what they class as there's native trees in it. I mean, again, to say which they have basically asked us to plant because again, to say it's part of the it's part of the. We don't have any more traditional orchards. Yeah, from that there you can see there's trees which I obviously let them trees stay there because again them trees will always be there because again there's actually sheep in that wee paddock and they actually lie below it for shelter. So the orchard will be going in there. I think there's 18 to 20 original apple and pear trees from memory, but again, to say I have the email here from it's Liam Curry. So I do. So yeah, Liam actually has just submitted that this morning to me.
Can
I just follow up there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to follow up another wee question there. In relation to you have went through a lot of things, to be fair, at a few points, but you went through a lot of them. I was in relation to the there has been issues raised in regards to a neighbour here, and they have raised. There appears to be 5 separate issues here raised now. Some of them have been dealt with in the report by Suzanne there, such as road safety issue, and that's been stated that DFI don't have a problem with the road. And there was an issue there raised with lights. I was wondering if you could maybe clarify if that has anything in regards to the neighbour raising an issue with the lights, but also in regards to the neighbour raised an issue in regards to hedges being removed. Now, I know the area well, Chair, and I was past it this morning because I had to call over with a relative that's out in that part of the country there, and I see quite a bit of hedging in between yourself and the next door neighbour. So I was just wondering if you have anything in that regard there, any comments on the hedging that has been removed. And further to that, Chair, just one other question. In relation to fumes, I mean, you have stated you're not, what sort of fumes or as you have stated, you're not mechanicing at vehicles. You are fixing, it's a diagnostic service. There's not pneumatic drills. There's not various bits and pieces which would be generally considered used at a garage, but you're not technically running a garage there. So therefore, the amount of noise and from tools and such wouldn't be applicable in your case. That would be the case, wouldn't it, Mr. Rob?
That's correct. So again, to answer your question, obviously, first of all, if you can see from your, I don't know if I can actually move this screen or not, but on the next photograph there that you have, you'll see that there is a light stand. It's them trees actually, yeah, you can, yeah, that's actually the light stand. Them trees are in the region of about 14 to 16 feet. From the ground. There is a light stand there. I mean, again, to see that light faces southward, the house is northward, the lights are facing down. It's obviously because they're only ever switched on, and I mean, again, to say in an emergency. So if something's been dropped off or something that I am just, it's like a street light at the back of your own house. But again, to say that actually was originally, the electrician had originally put it on above the roller door. And again, to say it was facing out onto the road. And again, to say I actually changed that across to put it there. Now, on your second point on your hedges, there was an old hedge, but it was what's the name for it again? I was going to say eggplants was growing on it, so it was an old rough. It was it was like, what do you call them? Well, we call them eggplants. They only grew to about maybe 6 feet high, and then every so often they died. So at that stage, what we done is we removed all that. We put up I put up a fence. 6 foot high boards, and obviously we slatted them close together, obviously, because again, as I say, at that stage the neighbour was fully compliant. We concreted in the post, put up the sheeting. From your first photographs that you have shown in 2016, you will actually see them trees, and again, as I say, they're only about 18 inches high. So they've obviously had 4 years to grow. I've just clipped them up beside once. They're 6 feet wide, and they're about 14 to 16 feet high. And again, the next one actually is actually quite strange. It just says fumes. Considering what I do, I mean, and considering most of the vehicles, I would say a good 80% of the vehicles that actually come in here are not able to rev up, or I mean, again, say just come in and are dropped off. Usually, I mean, again, just dropped off down the road. I mean, vehicle is started up, left out of the edge of the road, switched off again. There's never any vehicles running. No need for vehicles to be running. And again, I say, as in for the fumes now, I mean, as I say, I have absolutely no idea. All I can say, or what I was thinking of, is that somebody else has actually basically looked at this and says, well, this is a garage. I mean, again, I can understand from your own perspective, it's not a garage, it's a diagnostic workshop. I don't work at oils, or I mean, you're going to say anything else. It's just wires and ECUs. As I said before, I'll give you an example. This is an ECU that's in from a guy to get repaired. I mean, you're going to say I have various other ECUs. I'm going to say in their various states. Now, I mean, this is what we repair. I mean, sometimes, I mean, you're going to say you have electrical faults on them. So again, we can do that in my office, which again, I don't know if you can see from behind me as well, my door is actually closed, and my roller door usually goes down as well, because again, sorry, one last question. One last thing I was just going to say to you, sorry, on this, was that if you actually looked as well on the inside of the garage this year, I have totally sheeted the inside of the garage and insulated it. So if you can see from the brown timber, that's all clad and it's all insulated the whole way around. So again, even if you have a dog barking in the garage or whatever, you would never hear it.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan, and thank you, Mr. Robb. Councillor McGuire, have you a question for Jim?
Jerry just answered one. One was the timber around the shed, the plywood around the shed. I was just going to ask, was that insulation and behind it, which he has answered. And the other one, I kind of missed Suzanne if she did mention it. Was there other areas in around the town, like the units in the town, checked out for this type of work? I missed the answer to that.
Did you want me to answer that, Kieran?
I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I mean, again, to say, you're probably aware that Castleberg only has, I mean, again, to say, a limited number of units, I mean, available in the Enterprise Centre. These units, I mean, I've spoken to Mr. Howard Pollock, who's the chairman, and his late father was the chairman as well, of the units in there. I've spoke to him on several occasions, namely before we moved here, because we were trying to get somewhere to set up the business. He's since told me, he says, listen, he says he doesn't know of anybody even wanting to give up yet. Most of the units are always full to capacity, and there was never any opportunity. I mean, again, to say that's the only place in Castleberg. I mean, again, to say that, everywhere else, I mean, you've got shops. They're obviously, they're only shops. There is no other, yards, or there's nothing else. I mean, again, to say with any sort of a shed on it that you could actually work out of.
Councillor McGuire, I'm sure you'll have your opportunity to ask Suzanne the question and before too long. But have you another question for Mr. Robb? Are you content?
No, sorry, that's happy enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Rob. Rob, did you see the previous owner?
Yes.
And some of your engagement with him around the Class B 3 use before you had it? Did you have I know you submitted some stuff around bank statements and invoices, but did you have any sort of difficulties with the previous owner of trying to
No.
evidence?
No, it's just that the previous owner, I mean, again, to say, you can probably see back, there was documentation with the planning office in 2006 in relation to a workshop, obviously building timber frame homes. You're probably aware, I mean, again, to say, it would be actually quite noisy. There was no gable door on it at that stage. It was all done from the house side. I think at that stage he'd actually moved to bigger premises, and then again, as I say, what he actually did do then was that he used that shed for storing paint, and also as well, that's actually where my office is at the moment here, but he used that as a spray booth. He had it sheeted off where he had a guy in with a mask and compressor, and he'd spray like doors that were a couple of £100, like those solid oak doors. So again, as I say, that was prior to me, but again, he's basically, he did give him a sworn affidavit as well. I mean, again, to say up until the date of sale, I mean, we actually moved paint tins out, and obviously had to take them to the recycling points, because again, I think there was over 700 tins of paint tins that were used, and it was a lacquer paint. There was an extraction system here as well for obviously blowing out fumes, filtered fumes. So again, as I say, that was used up until the point that I'd actually bought it. So it was still in use. I actually have his sign as well. The sign that was actually on the garage for taking it down at that stage, because there was people still calling to get doors sprayed.
You content, Councillor Gallagher?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Robb? No. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the time.
Any questions to Suzanne? I'm just going to maybe ask Suzanne to make a comment in relation to the question Councillor McGuire posed in relation to our available units.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. We did, I mean, Mr. Rob did submit the email from the operator from the site in Castledarg advising there were no units available. And that was obviously come in yesterday. I did have discussions as well with the agent before, but I mean, there's no clear, no clear survey or whatever carried out, So on that basis, but Mr. Robb has submitted that evidence yesterday, so for members to consider as well.
Councillor McGuire, have you a follow-on from that? Are you content with the response?
Terry, just to say, in the scoping out for the rural development programme, that's exactly what was uncovered, was the lack of business units in Castledarg for this type of business. So it just was interesting, if there was one available. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions for Suzanne, members? No, Mr. Robb has indicated, unfortunately, we're not allowed to go back, and it's moving on now. If there's any specific questions from members, and if there's no questions, there's a recommendation in front of us. Is our members content with the recommendation?
Chair, can I come in? Sorry, I should have put it into the chat box there.
Yeah, Alderman Kerrigan.
Chair, I've looked at this here and I see the 4 reasons here for refusal. Now, in relation to 3 and 4, CTY 13, that it will be detrimental to the visual amenity, and CTY 14, detrimental to the impact to the character. But I would be minded, if Mr. Robb has got documentation in relation to the Department of Agriculture here and a countryside management scheme or equivalent of countryside management scheme, and he is looking to, from my looking at the site here, the main difficulty appears to be the proposed new entranceway here, and that won't be will have this visual detrimental aspects, to the visual amenity or to the character on CTY 13 and 14, the third and fourth points. But if he has minded and he has got the position here that he's going for a traditional style of orchard on there, and he has planting this traditional hawthorn hedge as well on there, I would be very much minded, Chair, that that both of those points would be knocked out in relation to the traditional orchard and placed on there, and the bushes that he's seeking to plant will shelter and will hide and will actually improve the rural character and the rural visual amenity once that work will be completed. So in relation to those points, further to that, where is it? I had notes written down here. The second point, that was a detrimental impact on the visual and residential amenity by reason of nuisance and general disturbance. Chair, in my own mind, you're going to have vehicles. He's providing a service here, and you are going to have vehicles such as, and Mr. Robb's comments there, as far as I picked up there, he had mentioned of a delivery van or a van driver who needed to be out this morning first thing, and he called yesterday evening at some stage with him, or later on in the evening time, to see what such and such a light meant on his vehicle had come on. And he needed to be, I think that he said he needed to be in Dungannon or Roma or somewhere at 6 o'clock in the morning. And, for example, that you are going to have late callers. But other than that, I would be minded the nuisance and general disturbance, I don't feel that there will be. He's not in, taking off tires till 11 or 12 at night, or he's not in bathing at vehicles. I mean, my own brother does mechanicking, and I know I'll say nothing here, but my own brother does a bit of mechanic in there, and you know, he could be out till late at night working at things there. So, you know, I realise that, but Mr. Rob, in my opinion here, he's not doing that. He may well work till late at night, whatever his hours is, but he's if he's doing that diagnostic work, there's not the noise that comes along with that. Sorry, Chair. So I would be minded that I don't see that there is it will have a detrimental impact on the visual and residential amenity. Sorry, Chair. And relation to that, and further to that, then, Chair, I do feel that he has provided evidence in relation to CTY1 PPS 21, and there's no overriding reason why it has to be there, why it has to be in the countryside. Well, he's referred to his own business as Castleberg Auto Electrics, or I think that's the term for it. But he's stating that is he's based in the Castleberg area, but he has spoken to the Mr. Pollock at Castleberg Enterprise Centre, and he has no suitable units for him. So, although it would be preferred that his activities are taking place closer to a settlement or closer to the town of Castleberg, where else is there doesn't seem to be the provision. So I would be minded that I feel there seems to be an answer for each one of these points, and I had it as well here, but I can't remember which point it's relation to. PED 9, as Suzanne has raised, it was point A, point B, and point M. Sorry. Again, I would be minded. Point B and point A, amenity of nearby residents. I would argue that it's not affecting the amenity of nearby residents, because I don't see the reasons which have been raised by the objections by the nearby residents. I think they've all been answered, the 5 points that the neighbour has raised, plus the point that the integration to the landscape on point A. I feel again that can be sorted out if he does plant these bushes in this orchard, if that goes ahead. So I would be minded that most of that PED 9 can be met as well. But I do remark that Councillor Maguire wants to comment. So I'll say, that's all I'm going to say at the minute, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan, and I don't know, as Suzanne has pointed out when she was outlining or the presenting the application, is that the recommendations have been finely balanced. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on second the proposal, I would like to refer to Strabane Area Plan 123.2.3 on the proposal for non-residential development in the rural remainder. I don't have to read it all out, but if you read that paragraph, I think that gives us a scope there. And then on to the other refusal reasons, CTY1, the letter states, or it was quite clearly put, that there is no other developments in the local enterprise centre in Castleberg, and we know that through the rural development programme. The PED 9 as well, while it doesn't tick all of the boxes, you know, it ticks most of them for the economic development that we're talking about here. And again, in the other refusal reasons, CTY 13 and CTY 14, well, I think, you know, the screening, the size and the hedging now come back compared to 2016 and them issues and the backdrop of what we're seeing, I don't think that them are issues now. They may have been in 2016, but when the hedges grew up, I don't think it's an issue now. So I would like to second the proposal on that.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire, and thanks, Alderman Kerrigan. Any further questions, members, before I take it to vote? No. We've got a proposal from Alderman Kerrigan, seconded by Councillor Maguire. They not accept the recommendation, they refuse and approve applications, and I'm assuming subject to standard conditions. Before I go to a vote, Suzanne, do you wish to come in on that?
Yeah, Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, members, just in terms of standard conditions, I would recommend that you would consider restricting the use to, for the purposes of electrical and diagnostic repair, and that would be the only use within Class B3 of the use classes order. Okay, and I see Mr. Robb's nodding okay with that. I'm just wondering, do members want to consider an opening hours condition, hours of operation condition, and do members want to consider anything to do with limiting the amount of storage of cars externally within the site?
Okay, I'll go back to, I'll have for the proposer, the first right to reply, Alderman Kerrigan.
Chair, I think in the case that I see Suzanne's point in relation to opening hours, but I think in the case that Mr. Robb has raised, even as you mentioned, that man, or as he did mention, I think in his first presentation, in relation to maybe a nurse or somebody needing a car, and then, you know, first thing the next morning and nowhere being open, and if they land with him at 9 or 10 o'clock at night to say, what does this mean? Is this something I need to deal with now, or is it something that needs to be dealt with in the next couple of days? So I think limiting the hours, I wouldn't be keen on it. I know, I'm sure himself, he's not going to want to be working till 10 or 11 o'clock at night every night. You know, I'm sure once 6 o'clock comes, or 5 o'clock comes, or maybe 4 o'clock comes, he'd be glad to get read up. So I wouldn't just be as keen on that one. In relation to your other point, sorry, Susanna, I must have I'll let Councillor Maguire respond to that one.
Councillor Maguire, in relation to restricting the use the auto electrics.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that, Chair. You know, that's what the game is in. There's no problem. I don't think it'd be feasible, you know, for the type of job it's in, diagnostics. You know, it's not a 9 to 5 job. You know, your light could come on anytime. Could be a taxi man, you know, getting ready for the road the next morning. I wouldn't like to put a time on it, but probably maybe you could limit the cars to 6, 7 or something like that there. You know, if the proposer was happy with that, but not the time.
Okay. I'm conscious we're discussing potential conditions. We haven't took a vote on this yet, but I trust that if there's a proposal on the floor, and could the proposers and the seconders' views be taken into consideration when drawing up the conditions? Are you content with that, Suzanne?
Chair, so we could, yes, certainly we will attach a condition regarding the use, and also no more than 6 cars at any one time externally. Okay, if that's okay.
Yeah. So members, we have a proposal from Alderman Kerrigan, seconded by Councillor Maguire. Any dissenting voices? Just seeing in the chat that everybody seems to be content or supportive of the proposal. So, yeah.
Chair, there's more comments in the box regarding the numbers of cars, just to let you know.
Yeah, I just see Councillor Mellon asked, could that be discussed? I know Councillor Maguire touched on it, and I think we're all content at 6 cars. So seems to be supportive. That looks unanimous to me. So that application has been approved. Members, we're approaching the 2 hour mark. It's just before 5 to 4 now. I'm proposing we take a 10-minute break and we reconvene at 4:05 sharp. Thanks, members.
Thanks, Chair. Cheers.